Do a roll call, Karen, please. Melboy Benson.
Here.
April Burnell.
Here.
Larry Cerisi.
Here.
Renee Cockrell.
Here.
Janice DeFrancis.
Here.
Kimberly Page.
Here.
Douglas Roth.
Good evening.
William Brennan.
Here.
Presentations, where did it go? Okay, can we do the calendar, Karen? On May 21st, there's no school for students for Professional Development Day in the schools. On May 22nd, there's a Facilities Management and Planning Committee meeting at 6 p.m. in the admin building. On May 26th, there's no school or school offices are closed for Memorial Day. On June 2nd, there's a Cerrico Annual Collaborative Council meeting at 5:30 p.m. at Cerrico. On June 9th, there's a SEARC meeting at Fishing Cove Elementary School at 7 p.m. And on June 10th, there's a North Kingstown School Department retirees reception and a school committee work session at 7 p.m. And on June 11th, there's the Rhode Island Honor Society night at 7 p.m. at the high school. On June 14th is the high school class of 2008 graduation ceremony at 11 a.m. at the Ryan Center. And on June 24th, a school committee business meeting at 7 p.m. in the administration building.
The policies. Yes, there is a policy meeting on Tuesday, June 3rd at 9 a.m.
These two students do not have the superintendent. You may want to acknowledge them, but then
Okay. We have presentations this evening, which we're very happy to acknowledge. The first two presentations, both of the individuals are not here, but would like to recognize, hope I'm saying this name, Liz Beisel, for swimming accomplishments recognition, and I think we've seen that in the newspaper recently, and wish her the best. And also, you'll have to help me with this, Guillaume, I don't want to pronounce that right. Guillaume Rising, and I believe we are seeing some of his artwork for the National Art Gold Key Award recognition. Congratulations to both of those students for their accomplishments. And now the Wickford Middle School Science Olympiad winners recognition.
want to call their names? And
Sure.
I can hand them over to you. Get them?
This recognition presents Maggie Bender, placing second in the state with a gold medal and balloon launch glider. Tanner Butterrock, not here, for placing second in the state with a bronze medal trajectory, and a bronze medal in metric mastery, and a bronze medal in simple machines. Representative Amanda Cirillo for placing second in the state with a gold medal in disease detectives and a bronze medal in simple machines. Presented to Sarah Farrow for placing second in the state with a gold medal and balloon launch glider. This is for Sam Finneran for placing second in the state with a bronze medal in trajectory and a bronze medal in Rhodes Scholar. Presented to Nick Graham for placing second in the state with a gold medal in meteorology. This is presented to Lucas Hull for placing second in the state with a bronze medal in trajectory and a bronze medal in Rhodes Scholar. I'm so sorry. And for Catherine Hynek for placing second in the state with a silver medal in mystery architecture. And for Kristen O'Connor for placing second in the state with a silver medal in science bowl. Representative Griffin Schultz for placing second in the state with a gold medal in meteorology and a bronze medal in metric mastery. And this recognition is presented to Brittany Slow for placing second in the state with a silver medal in mystery architecture. And this is presented to Nancy LaCosta-Frazier for coaching the Wickford Middle School Science Olympiad team to a standing of second place in the state.
And it might be nice if you also turn. We have to have revolve you for the school committee to also see you. Did we not have to?
Oh, wait a minute.
Yes.
Someone's got the big hardware. What's that?
Yes.
This is Emily McLaughlin. She was a member of our team. And Chris Teckington, they were members of the Silver Place medal team.
Well,
All right.
congratulations. I'll make sure that you
Congratulations.
Which one is junior?
The one that didn't get the award, right?
After the singers. That way some seats will become available after the singers. I think they're in there.
Okay. Thank you very much. I believe we have another presentation.
Yeah, it's my understanding that we have some of the students from the Quinnesset Elementary School who are here for the Willy Wonka Junior play that is being put on by the Drama Club there on Wednesday, May 28th at 9:30 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. and Thursday, May 29th at the same time, and on Friday, May 30th at 6:30 p.m.
Here they
I
come.
think they're here to sing a song for us.
Ready or not?
This is
Come on out.
Willy Wonka. I expect to know this song.
Final makeup call.
Someone should also spend a home.
She did.
Should I go?
She did. We're ready. She will look over here.
Sitting here.
Hello. Hi. Hi. Sure. Right here. Here's one over here.
You're in charge.
I want to know everyone.
All righty.
To be in the car with a 19-year-old.
Oh, yes.
Not in front, on this side.
Oh,
Do you know which?
Hi, thank you and welcome for having us tonight. This was wonderful that we were able to come and perform for you. These are some of the students out of the 75 students that we have in the cast of Willy Wonka at Quinnesset this year. It's a volunteer-run program by myself and Mrs. Sharris. We run it for 11 weeks. It starts off at 2 days a week after school for 2 hours, and then it starts to run after that for about every day. Thank you, Adam. It runs for about every day, and it runs for very long hours, and they've worked extremely hard, and we had sent out a written invitation for you to come and see the performance, which is May 28th, 29th, and May 30th at 6:30. That's a Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and we really hope that you come to see it, and this is a small little verbal invitation from them for you to be able to come. Thank you.
A couple of the students wrote this first song.
I'm sorry for leaning over you.
Without the rest of the 75 kids. I'd also like to point out one other thing. 10 of our kids who are not here or would not have been here are on tech crew, and they are trained to run all of our lights and sound and everything with the exception of one guy who's on sound. So they pretty much run the show for us.
Have them go through their names, please?
Yes, definitely. And why don't you give your name and your character name? Because some of you were in character while you were singing. Why don't we start on this side? Go ahead, sweetheart.
Bailey, Oompa, Oompa. Isabel, Oompa Loompa. Emma, Oompa Loompa. Sienna, Oompa Loompa. Rachel, Mrs. Bucket. Patrick Keating, Mr. Bucket. Kelly, Mrs. Beauregard. Kayla, Violet. Emily, Mrs. TV. Jacob, Mike TV. Greg, Charlie Bucket. Chris, Willy Wonka. Adam, Augustus Williams. Miranda, Mrs. Salt. Matthew and Monty, Grandpa Joe. Jesse Facey, Grandma Georgina. Catherine, Oompa Loompa. Jojo, Oompa Loompa. Olivia, Oompa Loompa. Katarina, Oompa Loompa. Jennifer, Oompa Loompa.
Thank you again. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We're very proud of you and your work.
Have a good time.
Sneak this in real quick before we start on the kneecaps.
You okay?
How are you? You're welcome to stay.
How you doing?
Same dinner in the house.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Okay.
What is it? Yeah, I came around the corner and
I'm in a meeting.
I'm like, he introduces himself. I said, oh, your wife's in the car. She was behind the bar. Yeah?
My door.
If I could just take one quick minute of the committee's time and the community's time as well. We have one more recognition award this evening. I would like to take a moment to recognize one of our many community volunteers. In this busy day and age, it is very difficult to find individuals who have both the time and energy to volunteer, and when they do, their efforts should be recognized and appreciated. The individual I'd like to recognize tonight is one who defines a volunteer advocate. Over the past 5 years, she has served as a chairperson of the Special Education Local Advisory Committee and has steadfastly advocated for and defended the rights of special education students in the North Kingstown School District. Next month's CELAC will hold its annual election of officers, and at that time, the current chairperson will be resigning to pursue other interests. In a show of appreciation on behalf of Speaker of the House William Murphy, State Representative Kenneth Carter, and myself, I would like to present a State of Rhode Island citation to Mrs. Sharon Schubert. Reads as follows. Be it hereby known to all, the Rhode Island House of Representatives hereby offers its sincerest congratulations to Sharon Schubert in recognition of your tireless efforts in advocating for the children, parents, and teachers of the special education community in the town of North Kingstown, Rhode Island. The entire membership extends its very best wishes on this memorable occasion and expresses hope for continued good fortune. From Speaker William Murphy and Representative Ken Carter.
Congratulations. Thank you. And thank you, Sharon. Okay, now, Mr. Thornton, I hope you're going to entertain us with this kneecap presentation. Okay. So what you have is the kneecap assessment results, Dr. Thornton.
I promise to be concise and brief at the same time and get you through the state testing results from this past year. And if you could go ahead and advance the slide. And committee, if you have questions along the way, please feel free to ask. As you know, we had a test transition these past several years from the old test called New Standards to the kneecap test. The high school doing it the first year this past October. The grades 3 through 8, it's been their third experience with the kneecap test. The main 3 states involved, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Rhode Island. All 3 states have agreed on the same grade span expectations, or the same standards, if you will, and the same test. So, go ahead. In terms of how we do on the test, there are 4 levels, as you can see, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Hit the slide, please. The bar is what you have to get, 4 or 3 to pass. 2 is almost there, and 1 is below proficient. So we're looking for our students to get 4s and 3s on the ELA and math section of this test. Go ahead. In terms of grades 3 through 8, it's the 3rd year, and we can see some trends already. Please highlight that hyperlink if you can. I took the info and broke it down. You can see, you can think this far ahead, the class of 2016 are current 3rd graders. We can see how they were doing in 5 or 6, and our students, by the way, in NK do very well on state testing. Roughly 80% of our kids, 81% here, are getting 3s or 4s on the state test. 3 years ago, last year, and this year we're up 1 point. You can see in the chart, I have a few spots in green or red. That's kind of like my index, if you will, of somewhere to be maybe concerned, either green being good or red maybe some concern to look at. You can see the biggest area for me right now, grades 6 and 7. If you look over in the math, we went down in math by 10 points in grade 5, who's math over here, and down quite a bit also in grade 6. We really have to look at that, and later on I'll tell you what the answer is, I think, to why we went down. So we have to really look at that. Same kids over 3 years, all of a sudden going down, but also conversely, we have some nice news. You can see some green aspects there also, so some positive results. Go ahead, please. Why don't you X that out? Yep. Hit the slide? Okay. Also, the question is always posed, well, how do we fare in Sirico? How do we do? And before you hit the slide, I just want to tell you, people often try to, split hairs on these things. Picture a 100-yard dash, if you will, and they're coming in on a photo finish. Sirico, all the districts are high-performing. They're all coming in a photo finish. But if you want to split them and rank them, I can do that. I did that for you. So go ahead and click that. You can see here, yellow is North Kingstown, and we're currently on the reading tab down below. By grade, grade 3, grade 4, grade 5. You can see we're, in the mix here in Sirico. Keeping in mind, Sirico is quite high-performing. Grade 5, we're actually tied for first going along in that year. That's comparison. Please hit the math pad, if you could, down below. Now, keep in mind also the context later on. I'll tell you about the high school math. High school math across all 3 states did poorly this year, as you may know. But look at the results in math in grade 3. 83% of our kids are getting 3s or 4s in math. It's quite good. So I just want to point that out to you. You can see the other corresponding districts there. And how about writing, Deb, if you could? In the writing, you can see we do better this past year in grade 8 than grade 5. Questions so far? Anything of? Otherwise, I said go too slow for you. Okay? And please close that out if you could, Deb. And go forward. How can this data help us? Essentially, this can help us with instructional decisions. Keep in mind, recap data is kids in October are sitting in a chair, they're tested on previous year's information, and the results come back in the winter. So I call that an autopsy. It's helpful, but it's not that physical we need. It'll help us with instructional decisions for the district, but it won't help us for the kids in the seats as much. But we can get some data out of this. So if you look down here, we broke out the test. I won't show you tonight. If you want to see it, I can show you later on. We actually break out the test items kids do poorly on by the building, by the student. We know the answers. So I summarized it with this hyperlink. If you hit that green down below. In math, which I wanted to focus on tonight, by the building, DE, Fishing Cove, FC, Forest Park, Stony Lane, you see a trend here. Geometry and measurement, if you look down and scroll down a little bit, Deb, is the predominant shortcoming of our students in math. The question would be, okay, 6 different schools, or actually 8 different schools taking the assessment grades 3 through 8, all geometry and measurement. Same math series. We can really look at that. So we're looking at things now in terms of, is the math series we have offering enough geometry and measurement? Is it at the right time? And are we really understanding if our kids get it along the way, or are we just teaching, and moving on? So we're having these conversations. And we can actually identify the kinds of test items kids do poorly on. We have actual test samples. I'm going to show you tonight. We can actually give you test samples of the questions the kids got wrong, and redo those questions and do them again in the classrooms. So that's being done right now. Go ahead, please. In the high school now, a different conversation. We transition from the recap from the NSRE. Some folks are trying to do comparisons, comparing the old test and the test. You really can't do it. It's apples and oranges. So where we might have done quite well in math, for example, on the old test, a new ballgame now with this new test. A new trend line, if you will. RIDE currently is deciding on the new cut scores for accountability. You all know how we have state test scores, then we have AYP and the Province Journal and the rankings. That's being decided these next few weeks in terms of how that shakes out. And what does that mean, really? In layman's terms, a student gets a 4 or a 3, they translate that into a score. A 4 equals 100 points, a 3 is 100, a 2, 75, etc. You add it up, you get a number. I'll show you the bar you have to hit. And the politics behind this is by 2013, 2014, we're at 100%. Some folks call that the balloon mortgage, if you will, where we're paying, but at the end we're hitting a real difficult task of 100% proficiency on the state test across the whole state. Another visual for you, if you want to see the high school comparison. If you don't like the bar graph, hit the green one if you could. In terms of how we did in the state, we're third in the state on the first time around on the state test in NECAP. Look at the ELA score. 83% of the kids get 3s or 4s. That's wonderful news. Look at the math score, though. We're third in the state. Only 43% of the kids made it. All 3 states, the average is 25%. People are asking, well, how can this be? Well, one thing we're looking at is, consider the old test was given in March. Now it's given in October. It's 6 months less of math instruction before we're testing these kids. And are we aligned with Algebra 1, geometry? Is it all lined up? All the states are asking this question right now. We have, as you'll see, I have a slide talking about we have bright students, we have good teachers. Something's not aligned here, and we're looking at that right now. Questions on that? Go ahead, you can close that. And next slide, please. Going deeper, I just wanted to show you a visual for the high school. 225 students, we hand counted them, 225 students didn't make a 3 or 4 in math. Same population of kids, only 65 didn't make it. So something's really telling about the math component in writing 164. I can tell you, writing is kind of a mixed bag. People each year talk about the writing prompts and are they good prompts, are they bad prompts. It's the first crack at the high school. The writing test, 3 through 8, gives you like punctuation, things like that. The writing high school writing sample is a straight essay. All we get back is 4, 3, 2, 1. We don't get back any nuances of how they did or didn't do. So we're still looking at that. So as I mentioned, bright students, good teachers. It's really a statewide situation. I think we're on top of it. Barbara Morris is outstanding. She's really looking at what we're doing and how do we change it. We can't wait until next October to figure this out. This is now we're doing this. Go ahead. And hit that hyperlink. One more thing to show you. In terms of accountability, hit OK. Page 13. We have to hit a bar. This is the bar every state must hit. Scroll down to page 13. The trick is every state has their own state test. It's apples, oranges, bananas. But we all have to hit page 13. There you go. This thing. And we're in 2008, elementary, middle, and high. We have to go 2008 at the high school level. In ELA, 75 were index score, taking my list 4s, 3s, 2s, and 1s, converting them. And the math has to be a 63.2. And that's the challenge right now. But here's the way it works. The old testing paradigm was whole school takes a test, you pass, you fail. Now, we all take a test, we're scoring as a school and as subgroups, the IEP subgroup, the ELL subgroup. So schools can pass as a whole school doing quite well, but fail one hurdle and fail as a school. That's the trick behind this in terms of how it works. So we'll find out next week how we did in terms of the sub-scores. As you can see, by 2014, we're at 100%. The challenge here, the last thing I'll say, is Rhode Island's pretty admirable in terms of not doing what's called floating the standard. Some states will, kids won't do that well, so they lower the bar on the test. And we have not done that in Rhode Island. To their credit, they're holding the bar where it is. So we're being public about it, saying our scores aren't where we should be in math in the high school, and we're working on it. And the governor actually is having a meeting on this tomorrow, May 21st, having a task force meeting on math. And go ahead. In looking at our assessments in more detail, we're looking at these kinds of things. Are the courses or sections that we have at the school aligned? So, for example, if 4 people teach U.S. History 1, are we having the same conversation, the same kinds of assessments? How rigorous or how hard are the test items? We're looking at that now. Are they all easy items? Are they mixed? We have to kind of have a balance. What GSEs are covered? You heard earlier the conversation about general level classes maybe not having as many GSEs in them. That links back to the NECAP test. We can't have kids take a state test and not get the same experience in a high school but take the same test. That's not very fair. And last one I spoke to that access in terms of the access for the coursework. Go ahead. And the last slide I'll leave you with, we use the released items to really make district-wide decisions. The big push right now is geometry measurement. No surprise, we're looking at it very closely, and we can't see that come up again next October, and having not done anything. So with that, I'll leave you. Any questions?
Thank you very much for the presentation. It's great. It's great to see where we rank. and how we perform, it still shows how strong a school district we all operate in. The math deficit, that number, I mean, obviously the timing of the test and being able to deliver certain material to kids or looking at things they may not have seen is a pretty logical explanation for the gap. But is there anything else besides that gap that can explain it, besides the geometry and measurement focus, maybe at a later age? Is there anything else you can identify in that math gap?
At the high school level, I'm not sure that the GSEs are really aligned to the classical high school math experience. Algebra 1, grade 9, geometry, grade 10, Algebra 2. I don't think we really have had that conversation across all 3 states. I think it's a mismatch right now. What's happening? Because, I mean, we have some really high-powered schools doing pretty poorly on this test. I mean, so something has to be really wrong here, I think.
Phil, just recently in Education Weekly, they talked about that math books aren't the end-all, be-all for the curriculum issues. When you're looking at curriculum and math, and specifically geometry and measurement, what are we looking at?
I can tell you right now, before my time, this summer we adopted Everyday Math, the new version. It's a spiraling math curriculum, so in that you kind of have one thing follows the other thing. The question would be, if the spiral's not cutting it for us in geometry and measurement, what can we supplement into it? We're not going to now not do Everyday Math, having just adopted it this July, but we're going to look at, if it's not making it for us, how can we add on to it to really do better at it? And also maybe have permission not to cover some things, really have a conversation about, in grade 4, let's get really serious about covering the things that really matter. Because people have identified maybe 10 or 12 what they call power standards that really speak to 88% of the tests around the country. Same kinds of things, you know, grade 9, algebra 1, solving for 2 variables, that kind of thing. So we can really all agree, these are the things we have to focus on. Let's not go, as they say, a mile wide and an inch deep. Let's stop and really focus on the things that really matter. And schools that are really focusing on that do better on these tests.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll come to citizens' comments.
Brown, 160 Prospect. I sent a short note to the school committee this afternoon when I had an opportunity to take a look at the school calendar. I know that the revision from the previous adopted one to what's in front of you tonight on the consent agenda is a change of a date in June, which is fine with me. But I actually never had a chance to look at the calendar before. And what caught me by surprise today when I did look at it is that we're starting our school year on a Tuesday, the Tuesday before Labor Day this year, and I don't think this district has done that in any of the previous years that I can recall. And I mean, we're really biting into summer, and I would really like to maybe hear that kind of a discussion on why we feel we need to move that forward. And in looking at the calendar, I see that we have an extra holiday this year that we haven't in the past, and perhaps that's the difference. And that is that we're honoring both Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur this year. And although, you know, I have nothing against them as religious holidays, it's just that they fall very close to each other. We haven't always honored both of them in years past. It's a very new thing to even be honoring one of those holidays. It falls that the end of September 30th, October 9th, and then with Columbus Day on the 13th. That's 3 weeks in a row that we don't even have a full week of school. So as Dr. Thornton was just saying, we're getting in there trying to take these tests, and we're breaking up our school week. So I guess I would just like to hear my school committee have a dialogue about that, and is that what we'd like? And I'd like to really hear from teachers as well on what their opinion on that is. And then my other brief comment would be is that last week we had a full agenda, just as you do this week, but there were many things on unfinished business that were really new business, and as I said before, I'm looking at this agenda and for discussion and possible action, and I don't know what you're going to discuss tonight. There's been nothing in a previous meeting on items CIP, Wickford Elementary School future use, and configuration of grade school proposal. I haven't heard this committee discuss this at all, and I would like maybe perhaps some latitude if any member of the public has questions or would like to offer input before any types of votes are taken tonight. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks. Hold on.
Bill Mudge from North Kingstown. Madam Chairman, very concerned about this year's budget, and I haven't seen a budget really presented yet. I guess it's balanced. I guess it shows us where our expenditures are going to be from kindergarten to mathematics at high school, curriculum, training, and so forth and so on. I'm very concerned about that. And what I've just given you is something that is equally concerning to me, because I met with the town council last week, and I heard something that was kind of distressful. First, if you look at this, Madam Chairman, you'll see that in 2006, we had almost $1 million surplus in our school budget. Last year, in 2007, at the end of 2007, we had $807,000 surplus. And that surplus last year was allocated to the cafeteria, some settlements, and $75,000 went to the following year, which I don't think the school committee approved. My point is, there was $455,000 at least. If you look at line 24, $455,000 was in the school budget according to the audit this year, okay, in 07, which is kind of troubling to me, because at the town council the other night, we had a discussion about the COPS program and so forth and so on, which we should implement. I asked the question, why don't we fund part of this with this surplus? And the answer came back is the surplus has been spent. Now, I don't know if the school committee knows where the surplus has been spent, but it was kind of the first time that I was aware that this surplus was spent. Of course, I'm just a taxpayer. But with respect to that, what it means to me is, from this year's operating expenditure, you initially had a $2.3 million budget deficit. You've cut $450,000 roughly from the budget, so you still have another roughly $1.8 million, okay, to find out where you're going to cut these. But from actual expenditures this year, you're going to tack on another $400,000 that you don't have, that you spent apparently this year. So that's really $2.7 million of something that's got to be cut, if indeed you have spent the $400,000 this year. So that's problematic, and I just bring it to your attention. You know, you're winding down to the end of the school year coming up. You haven't identified where, I believe you haven't identified where all these cuts are going to be at the high school, at the kindergarten level, or whatever level. And we know we got in trouble several years ago. After school got out, the superintendent was doing crazy things, hiring teachers without anyone knowing it, and the public just went absolutely crazy, because when they got back to school, they didn't know what was going on and what was being cut. So I bring your attention to that, and I would ask if that money was spent, and what the impact of that expenditure is in terms of this year. Will you have any surplus this year? Secondly, I'd just like to bring attention to your vending machine policy. It needs to be rewritten. It is completely, just it doesn't do the job. If you look at that very closely, it says, well, we're going to just hire a vendor, a guy with a vending machine with a reputation to come in and run the vending machines. Well, first of all, we know what kind of people sometimes run vending machines. But nonetheless, we do have a state law and a town charter policy that says any contract that's awarded for over $5,000 must be approved by the school committee. That's you. Can't be approved by an administrator. Can't be approved by a principal. Can't be approved by a whatever. It must be approved by the school committee. And I assume that if we're bringing revenues in between $50,000 and $70,000 a year, that we have a substantial contract that you should be part of, number one. Number two is, your policy doesn't say who can spend the money at all. It just says who can be used on schools. Well, who can spend the money? The janitorial staff, the teachers, the principals, spend it. Personally, I think you're making a huge mistake. Again, this year you have a $120,000 deficit in your cafeteria. It was $122,000 last year. There was $63,000 the year before. How are you going to get the money to square that away? So I think you're really being naive and addressing really where this money should be used, and especially the policy just doesn't do it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dave Wren, 21 Loop Drive. I'd like to speak to one of the unfinished business items later on, if I can. Yes, I am.
Okay.
Jill John, 102 Sidat Drive. I just wanted to point out Fishing Cove School underwent a salt visit this year, and the report was recently released. And the evaluation team recognized the importance of technology education and how it enhanced student learning. So I wanted to share with you an excerpt from the report in their findings on school support for learning and teaching. This is referring to the school's successful program that they have, which integrates What a Difference a Bay Makes throughout the school. And this is a quote from their report, the SALT report. This valuable learning experience is enhanced by the technology readily available so students can further explore their questioning and knowledge. The school's media center, mobile lab, classroom computers, website, and extensive Bay links add to both student knowledge and enjoyment. End quote. I hope that you too value technology in our elementary schools and retain the technology teachers who have such a positive impact on our students and their learning. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill.
Jim McGuinn, 412 Chimney Rock. First of all, I'd like to congratulate Mrs. Schubert. There's many people that volunteer to make up the district and really form the community that is so central to any school system. Without the community, and I know, going back to the days of Quinnesset and whatnot, great community schools in this district, and it really has attracted people into the area, and it is something that I think reflects in the scores. To follow on the comments of some of the other folks, there weren't enough agendas outside, but things like the personnel benefit policy for non-unit staff, there'll be comments on that. Okay, and the new whistleblower, and the strategic plan. I just wanted to make sure that there would be comments on those items.
Absolutely.
Okay. I wanted to point out, because this issue is important. It does represent. It's not just nickels and dimes. It does represent the value of at least 1 to 2 teachers per year. The vending issue and how it relates to the cafeteria budget. And I'm very glad that Ned is putting in cafeteria budget on a regular basis, and he's showing where it is year to date and month to date. Those are the kinds of things that I think the school committee really wants to look at. Just to let you know, I mean, $82,000, it was $122,000 in deficit at the end of last year. If I read this correctly, there's an additional $82,000 that's in debt year to date. And that's 50% worse than the cafeteria was doing last year. And we can, it's a number of things that add up to that. Fuel, the cost of food, everybody talks about the cost of food going up and whatnot. But this vending machine issue hasn't been resolved. In month to date, it's $10,000. That's $10,000. Just to remind people, the factor put in, or the assumption put in for a teacher, was $55,000. People in this town pay their taxes $1,500, for a house, $2,000, $5,000, $20,000 for some elderly people, forces them to have to sell and leave the community. This is real money. And I don't think it should be diminished as quarters, as it's been put in the paper. I also want to bring to the attention of the committee the most recent in a series of very troubling behavior by the former chairman. A member of the community got an email from the chairman with the subject, "Wishing you the best." Now, it was directed towards Dr. Camara, 84-year-old grandmother who's been very active in the community, and recently, last year, when the bond failed, before it failed, and remember, it failed in every one of the districts, including those, except one, it had failed in the districts where the schools were located that were going to benefit from the money. Dr. Camara said you need a Plan B. And 84 years old, she spent countless weeks pouring through stacks of information, and she put together a Plan B. Let me read you some of the things. He starts out, let me, wishing you the best, but very quickly, he goes into sort of a backhanded compliment.
Jim, would you read the whole thing?
I'm going to give it to
you read the whole thing?
I'm going to give it.
Because I have it with me as well. So
would you like to read it?
I would, actually.
Okay, why don't you read the whole thing, start to finish, and then...
I'll ask you to do that since you're bringing it forward. And as a preface...
This is now out of order.
I mean, if he wants to go here, Dr. DeFrancis, that's fine. I tell you right now, Mr. McGuinn, I'd like you to read the whole thing. I stand by everything I said, and I'll be happy to share the exchange in which...
I will pass out copies to...
Okay, that's fine. Please do that. I stand by every word I said in that. That's absolutely 100% reasonable.
Point of order, Madam Chair.
He wants to go here, that's fine.
No.
Well, this is not the first
I
incident.
have a point of order. Just a minute, Mel.
My point of order is that it is citizens' comment time, and whether we like it or not, let's sit and act like people who were elected to an office.
I'm just asking you to read the whole comment.
You spoke out of turn.
No, ma'am.
It is citizen comment time. You have your chance.
And this is more information than probably even Dr. Camara would want, but she is moving out of the community. Most people know her husband's in the hospital. He's been in the hospital for a couple of weeks now. She doesn't drive anymore. She needs to be close to family. This is not a happy decision for her to have to move at 84 years, being part of the community. But it is. She has to be closer to family. And this is how a public elected official responds to that. Now, this is not the first time. Remember, last August, September, he called her numerous times 48 hours after she came out of the hospital from a mild stroke.
Point of order never happened.
Well,
Dr. Francis, are you
there's
going to allow
an affidavit that's been submitted on that.
With all due respect, are we going to allow him to go beyond the policy limit of 3 minutes just to sit here and attack
me? You keep on
interrupting.
Okay.
Are we going to allow
First of all, let me just address this for a second. If we're going to address 3 minutes, we haven't really held that to anyone right now,
That's
Doug,
correct.
so I'm not going to do that to Mr. McGuinn. I'm asking Mr. McGuinn that if you could please just get through this.
I'm going to draw the line at personal slander. I want it noted for the record.
I don't think that's
Dr. Francis, Madam Chair, I want him to know that I'm looking at this as slanderous. I
challenge that
Mr. McGuinn,
with the
I'd be
affidavit
happy
that she
to.
wrote.
I would be happy to.
Okay, you can challenge
Yeah,
that.
you're lying.
In her own words,
right
it was
now.
signed.
So I just want you to know that.
I read the affidavit.
I'm going to ask that, could you just submit that letter that you
Well,
just did?
I just want to, there's a couple comments in here that I think are worth
I
noting.
copied
If
the
you're
check.
going to, I
Mr.
think if you're
McGuinn.
going to read it, Mr. McGuinn, I think and you'd read the entire thing instead of taking.
And did you mention that I copied the chair on this note to Dr. Camara?
Now I need a copy of it back.
So,
'cause I don't
just
have
play
it.
your games, Mr. McGuinn. Keep
I'm not
going.
playing a game.
You most certainly are.
Actually, could one of the committee members read it?
I would read it. It's in my hand. I think you had offered me that. And I'm going to do so in correspondence, knowing that this
You're
this
going to read the entire
production. I'm going to read this. I'll be happy to.
Hold on for a minute, Larry, for a second.
This is Dr. DeFrancis.
First of all,
That is
Is
no
he going to allow him to
way for
attack
a
the school
member
committee
to
member
do
like
that
this just openly?
talking when a citizen
I
is
think
speaking.
we need to consider the fact that this is citizens' comments. So that a citizen, as we have all sat up here before, have made comments. Now, if you should take...
Slander, Dr.
Well, we've all sat up here at some point with that, drawing the line. I would ask Mr. McGuinn to please be conscious of that, and
I'm
if
very
you're
conscious
if you're
of it.
making a reference to the particular...
Well, I will make reference to a, in what happened last August, September, okay? There were comments made about me, and I asked for that to be put on as a agenda item. The behavior of the chairman and the secretary of the school committee last August, September. It was never heard. I again asked for it January 8th. I gave it for the record. It was put in the record, mysteriously. And then Mrs. Brunel resubmitted that for the record on March 18th, I think. I still have not heard any response on that. So this is an ongoing issue. And not only was I slandered, but Dr. Camara alleges that she was harassed. And it has not been heard. And this letter is further further example of that pattern of behavior. This is not the kind of letter that you send to anyone as an elected official, never mind a 84-year-old woman who's been highly regarded in this community. So that's the point. I still would like to know when the request, and you implemented a new agenda. And oh, by the way, it was directed by a Superior Court judge that you review your meeting policy. And you did that, and you did that in December. January 8th, I followed that policy, submitted a request, and I haven't heard back, and it's been 4 months. But this is another example of the kind of behavior that citizens get. And there is a difference between what can be said by an elected official and what can be said by a citizen regarding an elected official. And I think people need to understand that. There is a line, and it is distinguished. If Mr. Roth will read this, read it in its entirety as part of the correspondence section, I'm finished.
I'll be happy to.
Okay, thank you.
I copied the chair. Can I do that now, Dr. Francis, while we're on this topic?
Correspondence.
I just want to make a comment to this. You keep alluding, Mr. Roth, that you copied the chair. That does not mean in any way whatsoever I was in any agreement to the comments
No, I
made
wouldn't
in the
expect
letter.
it. But I
Just
wouldn't
make
expect
that
it. But I
clear.
want people to understand that the communication went from one person to a person who fronts an organization in town that is active in the process. Mr. McGuinn, the only question I've ever asked regarding you is, and I want to ask you again, are you a member of the NKTO in any way, shape, or form?
None of your business. I'm also, do you want to know what church I go to?
I'm going to ask everyone to stop at this.
Citizens' comments.
Hang on.
That's interesting.
This is
That is
citizens' comments.
completely
You
off.
have your chance to speak.
This is why Al Honan said, you are an embarrassment.
Oh, sure.
Okay, let's
We
hold on.
can talk about that.
If
A lot of
he'll
other
read that during correspondence,
We're going to move on here,
Let them
please.
attack
Thank
it.
you.
Just let them ruin the proceedings.
I'm not trying to.
You have made a mockery of elected
Point of
officials
order.
here tonight.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think I'll change the topic.
Thank you.
Thank you, that'd be
Jackie
great.
Walton Williams, 91 Scenic Drive. I am a member of the Davisville Middle School Student Advisory Committee. I am also a faculty member at Davisville Middle School, and I am a parent of a child at Knesset Elementary in Davisville Middle School. At the last school committee meeting, there was a parent who spoke, there were people who spoke about the promotion exercises. If you would give me a few moments of your time, I would just like to take you through the process, how we reached our recommendations to the administration.
Thank you.
And you can time me. On September 10th, we had our first meeting, and we reviewed our rules, regulations, and what the purpose of the Student Advisory Committee was. On October 28th, one of the things that was discussed was that we would move the promotion, moving up, graduation ceremony, what you want to call it, back to Davisville Middle School. It would be held in the morning and it would be held during the day. It was discussed, talked about, and tabled. We had pros and cons and so forth. Our third meeting, and there are 5 Student Advisory Committee meetings that are required to be held, was held on November 15th. Again, it was discussed. We reviewed our Robert's Rules of Orders and what our purpose of our SAC was. Each subsequent meeting notes were posted on our listserv. On February 28th, we also held a SAC meeting. Again, the motion was moved forward, and it was passed, that the Davisville Middle School promotion ceremony would be held in the morning at Davisville Middle School. At the beginning of March, I believe it was March 3rd, our school improvement team met. They also recommended that we move our ceremony back to Davisville Middle School and that we recommend that to the community. On March 5th, after, again, it had been recommended by SAC and SIT, a letter was sent out from our principal to all parents after having been on our listserv at least 2 times that the promotion exercises would be held at Davisville Middle School. This was sent by student backpack, and we know sometimes what middle school students do. So it was both on the computer and in a letter format. On 5/1, there was a student advisory committee meeting again. There was a meeting, and parents attended. We talked about it again. The recommendation held. There were some opponents to this. I believe on 5/4, there was a faculty meeting. It was brought before the faculty. The faculty unanimously adhered to the decision to go by the process, and that is what I'm speaking to you about tonight. There are always going to be pros and cons of a decision. I believe strongly, as a parent in North Kingstown, as a citizen of this country, as a teacher, as a school committee member, you have to go by the process. Yes, some mistakes were made, how people took notes, what they said, but you need to go by a process. If there is no process, then what is there? Again, this was originally brought up on October 28th. Parents had ample opportunities. We posted notes. They were on the computer. If there were differences of opinion, as there always are, then you go through the process. Again, if we don't have a process, where are we? I can tell you some of the original reasons we talked about this. To bring it back to the Davisville community, to streamline it. It is an 8th grade promotion. It is an 8th grade moving up ceremony. Absolutely celebrate our students. Absolutely celebrate and individualize them. However, it was recommended, as our role is as a student advisory committee, our recommendation was to bring it back to the school, to make it during the day. One of the reasons that was brought up as a comment at a meeting I attended, Davisville is not air-conditioned. You have it in the morning, it's going to be cooler. We don't know with our New England weather. It also allows teachers on their own time to wish students well. Would they come at night? Absolutely. Again, it was a process. It's not opinions nor comments. So tonight, I am here to talk about the process. We were given a process. We were given a handbook. What we were given, we went through. We adhered to the process. I request, as a parent, as a faculty member, as a community member of North Kingstown, if we don't have process, then what do we have? I happen to be a parent of Wickford was not happy with that decision, went through the process. I also happen to be a parent of a Quinnesset child. They changed the name, wasn't happy, you go through the process. And my one final story, and please time me, I happen to be a teacher at Davisville Middle. I was at school 10 minutes before school started. Someone came in, he happened to be a large man. The rule is, the process is, you get a visitor's pass. He did not. He was traveling the hall. I stopped him. He said to me, "Oh, they know me here. I have to see my child." Sorry, that's not the rule. Excuse me, sir, you need to go to the office. No, I don't. So I stepped aside. I was concerned. I went to my resource, our police officer. This gentleman was so upset, he took up Mrs. Eisner's, our vice principal's time, as well as our principal's time for an hour. That's safety. If you ignore process, you're going to ignore it at safety level, and you're going to ignore it at an intellectual level. So my request is, as you're considering all these comments and differing opinions, if we don't have process, what do we have? Whoever yells the loudest wins? Thank you.
Thank you. Drive.
Lisa Gerard, 104 Tockwatton Farm Road.
I'm here this evening just to present to the school committee the elementary school discussion of sharing principals. I know it's not a specific item on tonight's agenda. That is my concern. If this is an item that's going to be discussed at some point in time in the budget, I would ask you that this is such a significant issue at the elementary level. The principal is the leader of our schools. He or she helps provide a sense of security, community, safety, leadership for the faculty and the staff, and also a role model for the children. I know there's tough decisions that have to be made with the budget, but this is a very significant issue for the elementary school, and I think you owe the parents of those schools the opportunity to know that this is an item on an agenda, not just a way to meet a budget cap. With all due respect, we deserve the right to come here and present to you our thoughts, our opinions, our objections to doing this. Again, I understand budget issues are sensitive. Everybody has to share in the sacrifice when we're looking at the issues we have presented with the money. And sharing a principal at an elementary school level, I just don't think is a good idea. I know, do I have a better idea? No. But if you're making decisions back and forth, putting paraprofessionals back, and you're going to cover that cost by cutting the principals in half, I think that's a bad move. It's a bad decision, and I would respectfully request that it be a specific item on the agenda as opposed to being buried in discussion of the budget. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, correspondence?
I guess my hand will go up. Before we go there, I do have a couple of things I want to add to the record. Got a note from, let's see, make sure I get this right, from Troop 152, Cub Scout Pack 1, Saunderstown. Spent time, all North Kingstown students, spent the time decorating the Quinnesset Cemetery with American flags in honor of our fallen veterans. I think we all got a note, I don't know if I'm beating anyone to the punch, on the symphonic band that won a silver medal. Did I take it from you?
Yeah, but that's all right.
Okay.
The contest.
Okay, that's fine. They also won the Spirit of Cleveland Award for teamwork, commitment, school pride. This is the, my congratulations go out to Tony Silvera. It seems like every month we're getting these from the high school. Very, very good. I'll put that in. We all received a letter. He's got a number of items of correspondence. Received a letter from Mrs. Gerard regarding the staffing of principals over elementary schools. I want to submit that to the record and voice my support for the position the folks at Forest Park have taken. I'd like to submit to the record a note that I've received from Dick August from the Audit Committee relative to a question that we've had ongoing regarding the self-insurance fund. I know while we talked about vending machine money, I know that's very important. There is an issue of about $700,000 of money that hasn't been accounted for town side that I believe this report from the Audit Committee shows several questions around. I'd like to have that taken up. And finally, before I get to that letter, Dr. DeFrancis, I'm going to submit formally an agenda request for the issue of the self-insurance fund to be discussed at the school committee meeting, and I've done that relative to policy BE. Okay, if you don't mind, based on public comment, I'll move to this letter. That's all right? The committee's okay? Received through the grapevine a letter from the NKTO regarding departure Dr. Camara, whom we all know. We know the NKTO is an organization in town, a publicly held organization, nonprofit organization, routinely advocates for certain issues. People speak regularly. Received a letter claiming victory over the bringing down of the former administration bond referenda. Just the context of where we're going here.
I believe that the request was just to read.
Understood. So with that, I'm just saying it doesn't come out of the blue. I received a correspondence that I reacted to. So with that, I issued the following letter to Dr. Camara and copied the chair. I'll read it here. Dr. Camara, I heard through the grapevine that you are pulling up stakes in Rhode Island and are headed for Massachusetts. If so, I wish you and your family health and happiness at your next stop.
Point of order, Madam Chair.
Mrs. Benson, Dr. Camara,
I don't know.
He's asking me to read this. I'm reading it.
Just a minute. What's your point of order,
My
ma'am?
point of order is, I don't think all these people came out here tonight
I was asked
to
to
hear
read.
who was the grapevine.
This is the letter I was asked to read, in which I would think I was slandered to do so let me do it.
And you interrupted the citizen who was speaking. So I would like to rule him out of order.
You would like him to stop reading the letter?
Yes, he
Dr.
didn't
Fence,
allow
out
a
of
citizen
order or
to
not?
read it.
This is correspondence I was asked to read, so I'm doing so.
He didn't read it at the proper time, so
Well, I think that, all right, Mel, I think right now that, let's just get this read.
he can read it during
Thank you, Dr.
correspondence.
Francis. Appreciate it. If so, I wish you and your family health and happiness at your next stop. NK will miss your energy and your braggadocio. I know I will. So I give you credit for raising awareness around fiscal issues and fighting for your causes. You showed more of a keen understanding of the political process than you ever showed around the actual workings of the budget, but you worked hard, stayed involved, made your points, all of which are much more I can say about many people, as you well know. I couldn't let you leave without telling you one more time what I thought. In reference to claiming victory over bond referenda that hurt these schools, I do think you are facilitating doing harm to the school district and the town's families of school-age children with your organization's willingness to disinform and tear its education professionals down. You claim victories around bond referenda like the desire to fix these dilapidated school buildings were somehow unethical. But steered clear of obvious taxpayer pitfalls, such as contractual commitments and labor discussions because it suited you politically. You engaged through your subordinates in some fairly despicable activities that truly hurt others. In your wake, you leave a highly polarized community with deteriorating schools and little hope. Its young families and professionals are also leaving Rhode Island because of the decline in Rhode Island's educational quality. Not a legacy of career creator. Easy to tear things down, hurt reputations, and disinform. That's the easy path. I would hope as you depart, you implore to those who remain behind you, specifically the folks at the NKTO, that this is one community and that we all work together to take care of it and not exploit it for personal or political gain. It's about the community and not just the dollars. I believe that, and I hope as you leave, you prove you do too. We aren't as smart as you are, so we need to hear it from you directly, and I meant that nicely. She knows exactly what I meant by that. And seriously, I wish you very well. Sincerely. That's what that presentation was about. For the record, I will be more than happy to submit that, and if anybody would like the context of the emails, please let me know. droth@nksd.net. I'll be happy to send them your way.
Okay. Renee.
I don't actually have a piece of correspondence, but I wanted to announce that the boys' junior varsity volleyball team at the high school won Division I state championship this weekend.
Great.
So we're very proud of them and the coaches.
Excellent. Okay. April?
Oh, go ahead, Larry.
I just want to address some correspondence, personal correspondence that I've received from several members of the community. The town council unanimously passed a resolution adopted a resolution to rename the Quinnesset School to the Susan M. Hensler Quinnesset Elementary School. Up until this point, the school district, school committee has not discussed it, has not taken an action. I think the council went through their process. They passed a unanimous resolution. And just a suggestion on my part, I think the next appropriate step in the process from the school committee's perspective would be to appoint one or two people to collaborate with the town council in order to put together a renaming or recognition ceremony recognizing the name change to Susan M. Hensler Quinnesset Elementary School. Just a personal suggestion on my part, I just throw it up to the committee. Two people that I would like to see in support to work with the town council regarding this would be Dr. DeFrancis and Mrs. Benson. My reasoning behind that is Dr. DeFrancis being the chair of the committee, as well as an educator, lifetime educator herself, and a long-standing member of the community, and Mrs. Benson being a lifetime educator as well, and a long-standing member of the community. I think it would be appropriate, if there are no concerns or objections from the school committee, to take that next step and have Mrs. Benson and Dr. DeFrancis coordinate with the members of the council, maybe contact the president of the council, on taking the next step of the process and recognizing and having the ceremony in honor of the renaming of the school. So if there are no questions, concerns, or objections, and Mrs. Benson and Dr. DeFrancis are okay with that, I would encourage that we take that next step, possibly a correspondence from the chair to the council president to coordinate.
Dr. Francis? My only concern would be process here. I think, just like we've heard from folks coming to the mic, that this is a discussion that has never been on a school committee agenda, has never been proposed or discussed with the folks at the Quinnesset community, has never been issued or discussed through policy. Obviously, naming of a school is important. I don't think this committee's have even dealt with this at a process level. So I think ultimately, if you want to go there, I think that's fine. I'm a little hesitant to just go ahead and kind of accept as a directive if no one objects to something. But I do think that this is an issue that should be placed on the agenda for discussion. Should hear public comment, talk about the process of changing it, and then see what happens. And I know there's folks in the room from Quinnesset, and I'm wondering if, since we've issued leeway from folks on other issues, if they'd like to come up to the microphone and discuss it at some point.
What, Larry?
Mr. Roth, what discussion would you be looking to have on a school committee meeting regarding this issue?
Well, it's coming through correspondence, and we're taking unilateral action, Mr. Cerisi, by saying if there's no objection, we're going to go ahead and take this action to move. Frankly, I find that kind of, and not offensive, but it's on offense in the sense that you want to take a deliberate action that has not been discussed. So I would object to that, and I think this is something that should be discussed. We've talked a lot through this committee about transparency and open discussion. People come to the mic tonight saying that they're hoping to talk later about certain issues they care about. I promise you, people in the Quinnesset area care about that school, and they should have a chance to talk about it.
I will say, as far as process goes, the town council has discussed this at 3 separate meetings, one at Quinnesset Elementary School specifically. This discussion has been had at length, hours and hours on hand. They went through their process. They took a vote. They passed the resolution. As I said, this discussion has been had in public well over 6 hours. I mean, I don't know what's left to discuss at this point.
The school committee's never discussed it.
Excuse me, can I finish, please? I don't know what's left to discuss at this point. I think the only discussion the school committee has at this point is a renaming ceremony, not a process ceremony. The process has already been carried out. And I would ask in honor of the community and in honor of Mrs. Hensler that we no longer delay or drag out this process any more than already has occurred, and we accept the resolution that the council has adopted and move forward.
Mel?
I wholeheartedly agree with Mr. Cerise's comments. It has been discussed at Town Council. They adopted a resolution. They asked us to do something, and I think we should go on. It is ridiculous that we sit here and throw in process and all of those things. I've been in this town 48 years, Mr. Roth. I've never heard anything like you're saying here tonight. They didn't go through a process
I'm
of naming
point of
Zeke
order.
out.
We're in correspondence, and I believe Mr. Cerise has brought forth correspondence, and so I think that maybe that's where the
I'd
discussion
like a
should stay,
ruling
and we
from the
should go
chair
on.
whether I'll be able to continue to speak.
Speak to the issue.
Speak to the issue, and the issue is the naming of the school. And the council has sent us their resolution that to name the school, and the council, we have two bodies, council and school committee. So I make a motion that we go along with what the council says.
Madam
Yes,
Chair, point of order. We know that
I'm
we've
thorough
had
because you
we've
made
had
a
this
fool out of
discussion in the
yourself
past, and I
here
think
tonight.
Mary Ann's here, that we're not supposed to be motioning and acting in correspondence.
I think it was, Mr. Cerise had just made a suggestion.
Well, if there's no objection to it, we're going to take an action. We can debate that all night long. I think that is taking an action.
I'm not asking for I'm not making a motion. I'm addressing correspondence. So,
Is there kind of correspondence with that?
I am asking that the chair coordinate with Mrs. Benson and the town council to address the resolution. If you'd like to object to that, that's fine.
Is that a motion or is that an action?
I'm making a suggestion. Excuse me. Let me finish, please. You know, I've patiently sat here and listened to a conversation, and I'm just asking to be allowed to finish my turn to speak without being interrupted. The process has been followed. Because certain individuals may or may not like the outcome of the process, are we going to have a do-over? I mean, the process has been followed. 3 separate meetings were held. Well over 6 hours of discussion were had, and action was taken. We've sat on our hands for months. It's disgraceful. It's disgraceful what's going on in this community. So I'm requesting to the chair to send a letter to the town council or coordinate with the town council president. If you'd like to object to that, then you can object to that. I'm making a request to the chair. And it's up to her whether she wants to honor that request or not.
Madam Chair,
Is
we're
there
going to entertain conversation on
Is there a
this.
question on I didn't understand whether there was a question for me to answer.
No, I don't.
Doug?
Then I would request the chair that we also look at the process we've used and perhaps consider what that might look like in bringing that discussion to the school committee. A process has been used, not the process has been used. And I would suggest that we have a consideration here to talk about it. That's it. That's just my suggestion.
Thank you. April?
We all had opportunity to discuss the process. We've discussed it to death. I mean, we've all have our differences of opinions on the way it went. The vote was taken, and it's done, and it's done. It's a done deal. And now it's a matter of respect.
That's correct.
And we're really missing the boat here on respect. Now, if you want to put it on the agenda as to how to handle things in the future, on future naming of schools or a future policy, that's fine. But this issue is done, and out of respect, we need to just go forward, have a nice ceremony, and respect our community, respect our schools, and especially respect the Hensler family, who have been waiting a long time. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well said.
I don't have anything.
I have two. Can I make two correspondence? I have different topic. If that's okay. I have a correspondence here from Mr. Averdesian. I think other members of the committee have received this, but I'd like to enter into minutes. He is a high school teacher whose students worked very hard on our budget process, and the letter is saying basically that they're, a little frustrated right now and disappointed that we have not acknowledged their report and discussed all the ideas they had for the budget. I wanted to put that in, and then we did start to talk a little bit about it. It was just sort of commented when why I was bringing something forward at the last meeting, and I said because Mr. Aberdesian's class asked us to. And we really need to acknowledge these children for being so involved, especially their seniors. They're like thinking they're done, but they've put a huge amount of work into this, and I just would like us to come to the table, get our packets, and maybe bring it to the table next time, and there's some great energy ideas, and we need to talk about it.
Just one quick comment, if you don't mind. Yeah, I think formally we haven't responded or addressed it, but I think we've had some informal discussions, and I did comment, I think, at our last public school committee meeting that we having big initial discussions regarding renewable energies, potential future renewable energy potential in our consolidation subcommittee meetings. I think Ned was on the high school roof with some solar panels last week, holding them up, right? trying to gain some energy.
And the second one, I wasn't sure, Doug, the one you handed in on Forest Park, is that from the PTO president?
That was from Mrs. Gerard.
Okay. I also, you're right, I didn't realize that you handed it in. I did receive that same correspondence from her, but I wanted to publicly acknowledge it was the president, it's the secretary, it's a links representative, the treasurer. It's a joint letter that Doug handed in, and it's basically saying that they, strongly oppose one principal trying to coordinate and work with two different schools at the same time, which would be Davisville L and Forest Park, and all their concerns. So I think it's fair that the public knows and that other parents understand that we really